a lot of technology has tried to find a business problem to solve, and that's the wrong way around. You've got to have a very specific purpose and focus on that purpose, and then control the growth of that rather than applying a technology and hoping that it's going to deliver some outcome that you would like.
Behind every Microsoft partner is a story of growth, a story of ambition, and a story of people pushing themselves, their businesses, and technology further. Every week here on Microsoft Mentors, the podcast, I speak to business, technology, and thought leaders from across the Microsoft partner ecosystem, offering mentorship at scale to the Microsoft partner community. So let's dive into this week's episode of Microsoft Mentors, the podcast. Hello and welcome to Microsoft Mentors, the podcast. And this week I'm really excited to be joined by Matt Lovell. Hi Matt, how you doing?
I'm all right, Ollie. How are you?
Yeah, not too bad. Thanks, Matt. Not too bad. So I guess, Matt, for anyone that doesn't know you, it'd be good if you could just give us a quick 30-second, 1-minute rundown on who you are, what you do, just so people can get to know you on a very quick high level, if that's okay, mate.
I'm absolutely delighted to be with you. Thank you, everybody, for listening in. My name's Matt. I run a business called CloudGuard. I'm also involved with lots and lots of other businesses. Blue Coffee Networks, BCN Group in Manchester, obviously where CloudGuard's based. A LinkedIn business called Vols, a massive wind farm business we've been building for nearly 20 years. And lots of other tech businesses as well in carbon accounting and various other things. So been in tech pretty much 35 years now and absolutely love it.
Yeah. How do you find the time?
Everybody asks me that question, and I think because the pace is, and as everybody knows, you get involved with customers and they're all at different stages of projects. Some businesses get, and you hope they don't all get super busy at the same time. And it is a balancing act. I'm not going to deny that. But it also is a great perspective setter, because you see things in other businesses and that helps inform you and, gives you a lot more perspective. I think if you're so intensely involved in one business, it can become really quite overwhelming at times, particularly with AI. And AI is there and is massively enabling simplification and operational efficiencies and advances, particularly in medtech, which I've been involved with previously, which are out of this world, in terms of moving us forward. But yeah, it's just the fact that I get so much enjoyment out of it that I do it, really.
Yeah. And where I always like to start these conversations, and people that have listened to the podcast before will know where I'm going with this. I always like to get a bit of a feel as to sort of what people's pathways into the industry looks like, and sort of what those career steps that you've taken to get to ultimately where you're at now. So with yourself, Matt, what did that look like for you, sort of early years, school years? Was technology something, innovation that you were interested in? Did you fall into it? What did that journey look like at the start?
Great question. And I would probably say, no, it wasn't tech. I love sport, absolutely love sport. And I really educationally wasn't particularly capable. Or applied, and those two things, go hand in hand. I think, I really focused on sport as a means of enjoyment and how I wanted to spend my time, to the detriment of probably learning as much, as I should have been doing. For me, I had a number of jobs as a result of that. I worked for an Undertakers, which was and is the University of Life. And that gave me a perspective with people that, like no other job, I think I possibly could imagine. I worked in a bar, I was a mechanic, I was a gardener. I ran my own gardening business and I absolutely loved it. It's still one of my most favoured jobs, and I love gardening to this day.
Yeah.
So, for me, it was a case of actually I wanted to do engineering, and I went to university to focus on that with business studies. And I fell into tech as a result of, very much getting into an industrial placement with a big global pharmaceutical company, which opened my eyes as to tech, to SAP, So rolling that out, absolutely loved it, and that's where my tech career pretty much started and hasn't stopped.
Yeah. What would the sport have been if you had made it as a professional sports star?
Well, firstly, I would never have made it as a professional sports star. Just to reset that expectation. But I absolutely love rowing. I absolutely love martial arts. I absolutely love rugby. Those three sports for me are the sports, and anybody that knows me, I think, would be testament to that as well. I love all sports. Love watching sport, any sport. So yeah, it's a constant source of enjoyment, and the teamwork and the camaraderie you get from it is like nothing else. And I implore everybody to enjoy a team sport, whatever the sport is. Enjoy a team sport. There's nothing like it.
Yeah, and there's lots of synergies between business and sports, right? That's why there's always so many crossover with analogies from both worlds that apply to both worlds. And I think there's always things that us in the business world can draw from the sports world, and likewise, I think there's a lot from the business world that the sports world can draw from the business world, right?
Yeah, absolutely, 100%.
So you started out as a sort of a more of a techie doer type person. At what point in your career did you start getting involved with more of the, I guess, senior leadership and business side of things?
Well, I think I went through a number of organisations running big projects and big projects for customers in those organisations. I was privileged enough to work for some really amazing tech organizations, Microsoft, Perot Systems, and they were growing rapidly as businesses. And the mentorship in those businesses, at that time for me, and I know today, from people that are still in those organizations, have joined those organizations, it's like nothing else. And it was the opportunity that presented itself working on big projects, running bigger tech teams, solving really challenging customer problems that got me into the more leadership management side of it all. The more you start to see problems, whether it was med tech, whether it was, sort of solving really challenging IT problems, whether those were infrastructure or application or business system, that for me and the logical side of my brain, the engineering side of my brain was where I wanted to, navigate. And then over the years in sort of starting businesses, that's excited me, and building businesses, that excites me even more. And everybody says to me, it's amazing to build these businesses. The most satisfying thing in all of those businesses is watching the evolution of people that you bring into the organization and how they develop and grow to become the next generation. So in every business I've been in, whether it's been Paulson or Computer Center or Centig or CloudGuard now or BCN, you name it, all the businesses that I'm involved in, seeing that progression of people, that satisfaction that you get in being part of their journey and part of their learning is the most precious and the most important thing, I think, to me. And it's the reason that I still do it and still do it with the energy and the commitment, because the people coming through, really excite me, their capability, seeing them grow and develop. And there has to be a natural handoff and succession to all these people and all these businesses. So that for me is really driving it. I think CloudGuard was quite a unique business. We were running, myself and Jav, along with Rob and Mark and others, and the team of over 450 people in Bolton, as I left. We were running a very big global data center network, infrastructure, cloud footprints for customers. The stay awake thing at night was cyber attacks. It just literally overnight took off, sort of around 2015, 16, and customers were really overwhelmed. And there was a noisy neighbor, and it was evolution from sort of volumetric attacks into more sophisticated application attacks, all of them disruptive. And we were like, there's got to be a better way, a smarter way of helping protect, businesses, particularly smaller businesses that still can't afford enterprise class solutions. Therefore, the sort of journey with CloudGuard, me and Jav were scratching our heads going, there isn't a cost-effective solution here. Let's build one. And that's really where CloudGuard started and is today, 6 years on from where we founded it. We started it automation first because we saw so many security operations centers just overwhelmed, and it becomes manual and there's burnout and it's really inefficient and not as responsive as it needs to be. The attackers are far smarter in their use of AI, generative AI, and that in itself creates more stress and more pressure on teams, and we've just got to approach it in a smarter way. Having that focus, because tech's a big landscape now, having that focus has really helped us solve problems. And ultimately, I've always struggled in tech in I guess seeing the end product. But actually, when you protect a customer and you provide continual improvement, and you can really leverage AI and get the true value from AI, then that is actually quite rewarding.
Yeah, and it's such a cat and mouse game, isn't it, on the security side of things, and it's happening, like you say, at such a pace. The bad actors of the world are just as sophisticated as the good guys, like you and you know the MSSPs of the world that are trying to protect businesses, and it's a case of knowing where the bad actors are trying to get to, what the attack vectors are, and then also being able to move at a pace so that you're staying ahead of them, like say, rather than doing things manually, having things that are utilizing the ability of the technology for good rather than for bad, like they do on the attack side, right?
Yeah, I mean, fundamentally, the human being, the majority of us at least, are very curious and very trusting people, right? And therefore, zero trust is really quite a challenging methodology to implement. And therefore, attackers know this and try to exploit it, whether through now impersonation, through obviously credential theft, or indeed more straightforward attacks, phishing emails, spear phishing emails, deepfake attacks. And that's trying to exploit that human weakness. Yes, you've got technological weakness, whether it's a vulnerability or a critical flaw or misconfiguration, whatever it might be. It could be a combination of, it could be application, it could be system, it could be infrastructure, it could be API. But fundamentally, we've got to both educate, increase awareness, improve our ability with technology to lead the protection and detection, relying solely on the human instinct. We know, both statistically and technologically is not the right approach, but we have to find a way. And certainly in 2018, when Microsoft launched the security portfolio and developed and pushed Sentinel, it was very, very much in its infancy when me and Jav picked it up, and we were really impressed with how open, unlike other platforms, that the Sentinel architecture was, and knew we had to develop it, but knew that we had a steep curve to work through. Microsoft has put $25 billion behind the platform, and it shows, right? So for us, that Microsoft ecosystem is the dominant one, from a front office point of view for users. It's obviously the primary or principal attack vectors that a lot of attackers use in terms of M365 and the messaging environments. Yes, you've got lots of multi-cloud customers as well, and the angles are the same. What we've got to do is really leverage existing capability and licenses and technology that's changing all the time. Microsoft's constantly adding to it. It's one of the leading threat intelligence providers, in the globe. We work with plenty of others, Recorded Future being another. But it's really enriching that and using automation and our technology that we've developed. Others have developed very similar capabilities to protect customers alongside themselves, and to truly interact. And the problem is it hasn't been as responsive or as interactive as it needs to be. It can be that now, which is the great thing.
Yeah.
We've got to work out how we now integrate and mesh all of that together. So it's not just one attack vector, it's multiple attack vectors. They can take and steal data from other sources, as we see on a regular basis, and did through 2025. And we've seen how devastating, if they get it right and they get through, it can be, how disruptive it can be. And we saw that with Jaguar Land Rover, not picking on them unfairly, but the implications to supply chain and tens of thousands of jobs associated with one attack on one company can be amplified to a huge degree. And that's what we've got to learn from and understand and embed in organizations going forward.
Yeah, definitely. I think maybe when we look back at 2025, it might be a bit of an inflection point, I think, in the sort of cloud and cybersecurity world. I think whilst it's always been a conversation point within, the IT world and the techie world, and the importance is known there, then when it starts to bleed out more into the public discourse and you get, a big event like a JLR, an M&S, etc., and you see in the real world the impact that it has on both sort of process and systems of organizations, but also in, like you say, all the way down to people's livelihood, the suppliers into a JLR that can't pay their bills, etc. It shows the impact that it can have. And I think it's one of those, isn't it, with security that you never think you need it until you need it, right? It's like, think about your house. You don't think about installing CCTV around your house until you or a neighbour gets burgled, and then all of a sudden you go and do it. The logic's the same on the IT side of things. And it's amazing. And you referenced there about sort of utilising Microsoft products and features that are already available. The amount of organisations that actually have got and are already paying for the systems that they need to protect themselves, but they're just not enrolled because they're not, turned on by default on their 365 or in their Azure portal or whatever. And it's having the foresight to be able to work with the right sort of partners to educate you on what you need to do. And a lot of the time, you've actually already got the tools at your disposal. It's just knowing how to implement them and how to turn them on sometimes, isn't it?
I agree. You see it if we just, in the Microsoft ecosystem, very few customers, we see smaller customers generally leverage the true power of what they have, even if they only have, say, Business Premium. You've got Microsoft Defender XDR, you've got the P1 capabilities. You can add on very easily, the enhanced security module, the ESM security module. If you have Purview, you can add that on as well. And it is a very, very powerful step up in capability that is available to businesses very straightforwardly through their existing, Microsoft M365 subscription and tenant. Do we see customers leveraging all the capability in there? Very, very infrequently. If you take email as a starting position, so many attacks come via the vector of phishing and spear phishing, and they're getting more and more sophisticated, and yet organizations don't have just basic hygiene settings, sender provider framework, what we call SPF, DMARC and DKIM. If you haven't heard of those phrases, please go look them up. They're super important. What they do is they add tremendous enhancements to validating the sender domain to your domain. And, in terms of spoofing, in terms of phishing, it can remove a huge swathe of attack vectors just by making simple changes. It can be quite difficult, particularly DKIM, to implement without stopping, email if they're coming from lots and lots of unauthenticated, non-standard sources and domains. I totally get it. But again, we've got to be mindful of the fact that we've got to reduce the impact of phishing and the reliance on users to discern between what is genuine and not genuine, which is getting harder and harder to do. An impersonation of people and emails, whether it's digital or obviously, just two-dimensional in an email being received. This is very, very difficult. It can happen to the best of us, and clearly has in lots of small businesses. And the impact is just as proportional as, a Marks and Spencer's, a JLR, or any of the other attacks that we've seen in mainstream media.
Yeah. And as we continue to go down this track of AI and generative AI, that element of trust is going to continue to dissolve potentially as the it's already very close when it comes to voice, when it comes to video. We'll be at a point very soon where you could send me a voice message saying, Ollie, I really need your help here, mate. I need, X, Y, and Z as my boss, employee, whatever. And you'd pick that up as an employee and think, oh, Matt's just sent me a voice note and I need to go and do this thing because it's come from Matt's number. It's spoofed as Matt. It sounds like Matt. It looks like Matt. I'm going to go and do what Matt's asked me to do. We're not too far away from that in reality, are we? If not, it already happening.
Oh, we're already there, Ollie. I mean, you look at the capabilities of voice synthesis, and it's 99.5, 6, 7, 8, even 9% accurate. It's that accurate, and with minimal effort, right? You don't need great skills. You flip it the other way, and you go, how do we detect the authenticity of this? And actually, the tools are far less mature. And we did a webinar series looking at social engineering at the end of 2025. It's super popular. Please go and have a look at it in the CloudGuard channels. But again, we were just showing the type of tools people are using to generate this, how accurate they are, how easy it is to sort of let that through or let your guard down, etc., or believe it, as you just said, and how difficult it is to detect it. And it's really difficult. You've got lots of IT people under a lot of pressure, wearing many hats in their role, and they've got to skill up in these new tools to detect, what is authentic or not. And as you said, the next wave going into 2026 is actually data, using generative AI to generate genuine data, or would appear genuine data, but it isn't. So understanding data authenticity, and that's going to be the next focal point, I think, for attacks and for security professionals to really hone in on, to go, how are we going to validate the authenticity of what data has been sent or received? It could be legal, it could be a business transaction, etc. And that will accelerate very, very quickly, because voice synthesis and its accuracy and the volume of attacks has accelerated in Q4 nearly 100% over Q1 2025. So it just shows you how fast this is now moving.
Yeah. Like you say, it's staying ahead and hoping and working with the right vendors in the right place to make sure you've got the right technologies and tools to position in the right sort of way for you as a business. So if you were, advising, an SMB owner founder of a business that isn't necessarily overly tech savvy, but they know that, cyber is something that they need to think about as they're going into 2026, what would be the top level sort of priorities that you think someone like that should be looking at as a starting point?
So I guess my starting position with any business like that is, okay, so let's understand your current posture. Let's understand the risk to your business by understanding your business processes. Where's that risk going to potentially originate from? Make sure your attack surface is minimized both outside and inside within the business. So let's really focus in on the key areas. Of course, it's phishing, spear phishing. Of course, it's having the checks in security processes if somebody changes bank details, if somebody changes, anything to do with supplier details, how are you going to validate and verify that? We need to take that next level to data now. So, don't just receive data, even from an existing live or open ticket process, whatever it might be, that you're interacting with a supplier or another third party. You're going to have to keep validating that, as onerous and time consuming as that may become. But these are the important things for any SMB business to consider. Understand what your exposure is using threat intelligence. Too many SMB organizations we talk to don't use it. And, if you take a lot of the phishing campaigns, where they obviously originate from, can be anywhere in the globe now, but threat intelligence as an indicator would say, hang on a minute, we've seen this email address, and it's associated with some malicious activity straight away. And that can be used almost dynamically in your SMB business to protect you. So it's going to filter out that noise. It doesn't get through. Those are the advantages of using things like threat intelligence. And some of that is available, natively in the Microsoft landscape. Some of it you must pay for. Some of it you can enhance with third-party tools. Those are the things you need to look at the business processes and say, how much of our business process is reliant on email? How much risk have we got? Where do we invest? People don't have bottomless pockets, and we've got to protect the business in the key areas, the priority areas that take place. The same goes for understanding risks in supply chain. Too many SMB businesses aren't having that conversation. They might fill in security posture questionnaires or be part of a bigger supply chain or work for bigger customers, and they fill in the posture. Too many of them just go through the motions of, have we got this, haven't we got this, or we do an annual security test, a penetration test, whatever it might be. Annual's not good enough. The landscape is changing on a daily, weekly basis. So we've got to invest the time. It doesn't have to be new people, reskill existing people, give them the time to focus on it and improve posture on a continual basis. Too many people just do it when they have time in SMB businesses, and unfortunately you can get caught out.
Yeah, absolutely. Like I say, it goes back to the CCTV and burglar analogy, isn't it? You need it there when the burglars come, not after, a lot of the time.
Yeah, we don't want to be reminded just through what I typically call proximity. It's happened closer to home, and lots of SMB businesses go, oh, it's happened to a competitor, or it's happened to somebody that we know, or somebody in supply chain. That's probably case in point. We were talking to a business in Australia, much earlier today, And two of their competitors, they're in the sort of engineering and architectural area, have recently been targeted because of big projects, big government-backed projects that they're involved in, as is this business. So I said, well, that's a key indicator that the sector's being targeted. If you now know this, please take better precautions with regards to your posture. And by the way, and they'd reached out proactively, we were able to indicate where they needed to improve. Work with third parties that can give you that advice, and let's work together to make business cases to improve your security posture. That's the sort of key takeaway there.
Yeah, absolutely. And yeah, it's a landscape that you could dig further and further into and talk about for hours. If we sort of swing it back round to you, Matt, because I'd be interested. You mentioned at the start of the call all of the businesses that you've been involved with or are still involved with, and I guess from my side, I'd be really interested to know if there's a Matt Lovell blueprint to a successful IT business lurking away somewhere in the background of your mind. It'd be good just to get a bit of a feel in terms of some of the sort of the businesses that you've worked within. Are there any sort of similar trends, themes across those businesses where you go, actually, that's a key element, a key ingredient of success that I see across all of these businesses?
I have been blessed, and I would never say I've got particularly good traits, but I would say I've been blessed with working for some amazing people that I've learned from. People say to me, what traits did those people have? And I'll sort of, well, actually, some of the prime examples I can give you is I was fortunate enough to be in the presence of Tony Conifey, the CFO of Computer Centre, and Mike Norris, the CEO and longest standing CEO on the FTSE. And what I learned wasn't truly appreciated at the time. What I learned from both of them about, and that's a much, much bigger business, go back to Perot Systems, Ross Perot himself. I was fortunate to spend time in his presence. His energy was infectious and off the scale. But it led me to understand that actually, if you apply yourself at that level and you trust the people around you, and he absolutely did, and he supported them, and he paid for my education and other people's education at the next level, and he made that investment for the long term. And you've got to keep doing that, both in terms of your time and mentorship and sharing those experiences. And everybody over the years has said the same thing to me, and now I profess that to other people, which is give your time freely and available, in terms of the trust that you've got to have with people to develop them. Surround yourself with brilliant people and build a cohesive team, right? And it's that team and having one another's backs and learning from one another and feeling that cohesion as a team that gives you the confidence to push harder. You all want the same objective. Everyone's obviously got to pull in the same direction, and that's something that you've got to work at. There'll always be stresses and strains, good days and bad days, but as a team, you can help one another through it. It's very lonely as a business leader in lots of businesses, and any leader will tell you that. But actually working through the team and having that support network there is equally important. So there isn't one set of business skills that I would say learn this. Financial understanding is one of the key skills, I think, commercially, looking at efficiencies, particularly when we start looking at business cases, you start looking at where AI can genuinely make a difference in a business, but using it in a, rather than a more tactical way, using it in a structured way where you can measure the actual benefit that's coming in the business. I think a lot of technology over my career has tried to find a business problem to solve, and that's the wrong way around of looking at it. You've got to have a very specific purpose and focus on that purpose, and then control the growth of that rather than applying a technology and hoping that it's going to deliver some outcome that you would like. It's ill-defined, etc. Too many technological projects fail. I saw that in running my SAP business, and these were big enterprise businesses for lots of different reasons. And it's being able to spot those and call those out early enough. Too many organizations profess great security posture, but actually when you break it down and look at it, they aren't anywhere near as mature as they would believe themselves to be. So again, it's just having the understanding to have those conversations and speak consistently, clearly and concisely with regards to actually this is the reality and these are the options, right? And I think when you have those at a business level, it just makes businesses operate more effectively and the people in it. If you have the trust and that trust is reciprocated, those businesses are the ones that grow super quick. And I think technology is just advancing so fast now. I mean, it's scary. Once upon a time, I thought I've got a pretty good grasp, very generally, of all areas of technology when I started my career in Active Directory for Microsoft first deployed, etc., etc. Now I
Yeah.
haven't got a Scooby-Doo how you would keep up just in the cybersecurity space of what's changing on a daily basis, let alone trying to run a bigger business with more technology,
Yeah,
to be.
yeah, and I think that's where we've seen a sort of a democratization of the IT landscape, sort of IT service landscape, right? And niche businesses that have got a really clear focus and a really clear specialism are the ones that are being successful. Because, like you say, it's just impossible to be a provider of everything unless you are one of the big boys and you've got multi-billions of pounds to invest in every single practice area all of the time continually. Then it's just a losing battle against the rate of development and the rate of change. And I think that's where we'll continue to see businesses like CloudGuard pop up, which are very much focused around a subset of technology stacks, dealing with a subset of business transformation and business challenges, and delivering technology solutions in that lane, rather than trying to be across all lanes, because it's just so hard to keep up with the rate of change, isn't it?
100% it is, yeah. Yeah. And don't try to, that's my counsel to people, work as a team, play to all of your collective, collaborative strengths. And that's where you see the strongest teams and the stronger businesses come through that make a really big difference. And culturally, you're really well aligned to businesses that just want experts in the business, that want them to be an extension of their team and, be that security partner that they can trust. And trust, as you keep hearing me say, is the key word in security, always will be. And it's building on that trust and not undermining that trust, and that's really difficult, to obviously maintain in a rapidly evolving landscape.
Yeah, yeah. And as you've been involved in, businesses that have grown and growing and scaling in those early phases, because I speak to quite a lot of Microsoft partner founders and leaders that have maybe, like yourself, come from a technology background. They've set up their own thing. It's then actually grown into something a bit more substantial than maybe they first thought, and they've gone from being a technologist, a technology leader, to actually becoming a business leader, almost by mistake, and getting drawn into a lot more of that business side of things. How did you find those sort of transitions? And I guess, were there any elements that you hated doing? Because when you're in those early startup modes, you've got to wear every single hat different days, right? One day you've got to be the sales director, then you've got to be the marketing director, then you've got to be ops, then you've got to be head techie. How did you deal with that, and have dealt with that in the past, in terms of that variety, and whilst you're in that scale up mode?
Great question, and I don't think I've always dealt with it particularly well. And the problem with wearing many hats is knowing when you've got to take a hat off and give it to somebody else and trust them to get on with it. And I think in scale up organizations, you're constantly being pulled back, because in smaller organizations, you've got fewer people. And, as you scale, you can't control how, opportunities arrive, need to be worked on. Certainly in cyber, you can't control what's going on inside a business, how threat actors look at it, or may obviously influence and create issues in that business. Well, that business may be, acquiring itself, and, it needs more help at certain points. I think what I've learned, I wouldn't say with me and Java have got CloudGuard right. We work with, I guess, a great team that we've really invested in right at the beginning. So rather than hiring people who are really experienced in sales, in certain other areas, what we did was we set out right at the beginning, and it's a harder job because you're convincing really good ambitious people to join a business that isn't there yet, but they want to go on that journey too. And you've got to go
Yeah.
find those people. You know this better than I do. And therefore, you then nurture those people into those roles. And that's an easier way because they're bought into the journey, they're bought into the brand, they're bought into the whole history of a business. They've seen all the pain points, they've seen you grow, and it's easier to fail fast with those people, learn from it and get on with it than it is to try and find an instant solution to said problem. And I think it's got harder to hire senior talent. And I think businesses need to give the opportunity to develop into a role. And it's very easy as a sort of business owner to go, I need to take the sales hat off immediately and give it to a senior person who's done this before and I can trust, rather than I need to spend the next year nurturing these 2, 3, 4 salespeople or these 2, 3, 4 technical people or marketing people, whatever roles it might be. And you've got to do that times whatever number of departments you've got in running the startup, haven't you? And that's a lot of time, in order for the business to develop and evolve. But in the long term, if you can make that commitment and stick to it, and please do stick to it, that's the lesson I learned in CloudGuard. Believe in it, and it will happen, but it will take longer. We've been blessed because we've backed the business ourselves. If you take external investment, you are more focused on delivering financial outcomes. So those are the lessons I certainly learned, and we have taken a lot longer, and people have quite rightly said we should have grown faster and we should have done things differently. We have not wanted to compromise 3 things: nurturing the talent we took on at the beginning and nurturing people all the way through the journey, understanding the customer problem and making sure that we solve those before we scale the business again, and staying true to the automation course. We've taken customers on, we suddenly then see a whole raft of new problems. We've got to put those into the automation platform, make sure it's given a consistent experience and outcome before we start to grow the business again. And that's really, really challenging when you've got external investors, who want that consistent growth. And I'm not faulting them for wanting that. I'm just saying that you have some very difficult choices as a business owner to do that. But in the long term, certainly in this generation, I believe we have built a much better, richer business of people and capability by taking this slower approach that we have. And certainly the customer experience in this case is much better from the lessons I've learned in scaling businesses out rapidly in previous businesses that I've been involved in or had.
Yeah, and I think that buy-in and feeling of ownership of what the business has become, of the team that you've built is irreplaceable, right? It's for them to be able to feel like they've been part of that journey and know all the nuances and all of the tripwires, and when they're on board and a new customer, they've got all of the lessons learned that the whole business has, because they've been through those tripwires with you and with the business and with other customers before, and they can help other customers navigate that, and hopefully longer term you get much higher levels of commitment, productivity, efficiency, loyalty out the back of that as well, because it goes both ways.
Yeah, but the one thing I would say I've learned, and you might say, okay, so I'm getting a bit long in the tooth now, which is fair enough, but I think actually building up people so they can get to that role, and rather than them sitting underneath reaching a ceiling, actually having a succession plan for that role. Because one of the key lessons I learned in my first day at Perot was when somebody very senior there turned around to me and he said, look, technology is going to change such that it will do you out of your job. Don't be scared of that. Embrace it and reinvent yourself. And he said, unfortunately, because technology changes and evolves every 18 months, as was the case back 30, 35 years ago, not anymore. It evolves daily, doesn't it? But you do have to reinvent yourself and need to be prepared to reinvent yourself. And that's why I've been in so many, and I enjoy being in so many different businesses, because you get all of those different perspectives. You can bring them back. You can give people the assurance and the sounding board capability so they make the right decisions. You have the succession plans. You help them get to the next level, and then you evolve and you move into different roles and different guises. And the beauty of AI is it's just creating these new opportunities on a near daily basis now for us all. We've just got to be willing to evolve ourselves, as in different roles. And I have no issue in people taking on my hats that I have right now, knowing full well I will see other hats and take them on.
100%. And on that point, what's your view? Because it's I guess it's one that's got lots of nuances to it, and I think in the sort of the public conversation, it seems that people are on one side of the fence or another. One side is AI is going to help us do our jobs. The other one is AI is going to take all our jobs, and by 2030, there's going to be a total breakdown in the jobs economy because AI will be able to do everything. What sort of side of the fence do you sit on, or on the continuum there, Matt, on that?
It's a very challenging question in the sense that I see many headlines in tech businesses, and I think tech businesses are actually affected in advance of other businesses, if I'm being honest with you. So some elements, healthcare, social support, education has been digitized, but the human aspect and what we learn with people, you've only got to watch the incredible adverts for teachers and think back to your own education and saying, I didn't understand that, and if I had been using a digital format, I still wouldn't have understood it, but it was when the teacher did this or gave me the confidence to do that made the difference. And I personally, I wasn't particularly bright at school, but there were 2 or 3 teachers who just had that faith and belief and perseverance more than anything else. And no tech platform can necessarily see that, can it? And see that dimension. Certainly AI can't, it doesn't have emotion. In order for us to develop and have that opportunity, it's the same in getting your first series of jobs or just having that opportunity. And I think because AI doesn't have some of these characteristics, it won't replace key roles, certain roles, customer facing experiences. I think we will definitely see over the next 3 or 4 years a consolidation in key roles in technology where AI can just do it way more efficiently, and organizations will say, absolutely, we need to do it differently. It will call into question customer experience that you get from that, and that will evolve. But will it ever have emotion? Will it have the empathy that it needs to understand it? It's improving all the time, don't get me wrong. But I think there are certain areas where AI will open up new opportunities. Its ability to analyze data, particularly medical data and financial data and other systems, that helps us move forward and opens up new doors for people to then take that, build new propositions, new understandings, new discoveries. That accelerates massively our ability to understand the globe and understand nuances. I know we all like to travel, but there is a carbon footprint to consider, and we need to be serious about, the sustainability of what we are doing, as a human populace. And, to understand that if we make a large number of roles redundant, we need to replace that learning and that purpose for those people with new roles, etc. That's how society must work to help one another. So I think we will see a fundamental shift over the next 5 to 10 years in the way in which we use technology to give people purpose and employment. Absolutely. And I think it will be led by technological businesses themselves. But people do need to be supported in terms of making that evolutionary step to embrace it rather than either resist it or not want to be involved in it. And I say that as somebody who's been in tech 25 years. If you do embrace it, if you understand it and you look at the opportunities it opens up to you, and you're seeing this with, a lot of the development tools that are taking place right now, whether it's buildable, lovable, Replit, whatever it is, if people can embrace that, whilst it is having a fundamental impact on the development community, then people can build new applications and new ways of working. And that is something that we embrace, become involved in, and it opens up new opportunities. That's what I would say to people. That's my position. So long-winded way of saying, I think it's positive, but it's going to require an awful lot of mindset shifting in order for us, or more of us, to be more positive about it.
Yeah. I think I sit on the same side of the fence. I think if I think about the last big, if in the context of sort of IT roles, especially, if you think about the last big shift pre-AI was obviously the public cloud era, and I just think about, and I know conversations that I was having at the time, early days of Azure in the UK, you've got people that were traditional infrastructure, Windows Server engineers, Hyper-V, VMware specialists or whatever going, oh, this new cloud thing's going to, take away all my data center engineering jobs. And it's like, well, yeah, that's okay. Then you need to pivot and become an Azure engineer, right? And upskill and learn those technologies. I think in the tech space, I think there's a really good opportunity for people to embrace the new technologies and use that to either facilitate and improve their ability to do what they've always done, or pivot towards a role that is maybe more AI leaning on the tech side. I think where there's bigger impacts is where things are more process or administrative type roles out in the wider world that maybe get impacted a little bit more. And then, like you say, it's then where, as a society, how do we build purpose and opportunities for people that are in those sort of roles is something that, the wider world needs to work on together ultimately. But yeah, I don't think it's DEFCON 2 or 3 just yet. I think we'll keep going as a civilization for a little bit before the robots take over.
Yeah, and look, we're all going to be working for longer. So I think what we will have to understand is there is no singular career pathway for one life. And we will probably pivot 2 or 3 times, if not more now, with technology in our careers. And we need to embrace that. We need to put in a structure, not just at the beginning of our lives for education, but throughout our lives to actually be able to safely explore and to pivot into new areas using technology to give us the next chapter in our careers and, in our development.
Yeah, 100%. And if we sort of move towards wrapping up on your sort of career journey, Matt, I guess, if you were to look back now with the knowledge that you've got, and we're talking to Matt in those sort of first 3, 4, 5 years of your career, what sort of advice do you think you've learned that you could pass down to a younger Matt?
Don't spend your life building wind farms, hanging off them, trying to fix them. As much as I do love doing that, it is very scary, but it is very rewarding at the same time. I'm very proud of that part of my life. But what would I do? I was full of boundless energy and enthusiasm to change the world. I never want anybody to lose that. If we can just bottle it in those first few years and go, if you can just keep even a percentage of that, that makes such a difference. Whatever career path, whatever career you choose, right? Just keep that. I would say, just keep perspective, right? And I think there's so many things that can happen on a daily basis in all of our lives and careers, and with technology. I think you've got to be mindful of the headlines and what you believe. I think, unfortunately, because it's right in front of us and it's digital, it's very difficult to discern between what is genuine and what isn't genuine, or what we read first, how that influences the way in which we think and behave potentially. So just keep perspective, just keep that perspective, get out in nature, get away from tech for a bit. It massively helps reset. Nature's just the most powerful ability to reset, whether you go for a walk, wherever you are, you get out and you do team sports and you just interact with people. I think the interaction is such a fundamental part. Team sports for me, even in those early days, absolutely love them. And some of the people that I've known in those early businesses and team sports, I'm still good friends with today. And I think that's super important through life. You share the experiences, you still have those friendships, you can still talk about your lessons learned, and to also share, the people that shared their experiences, their time, that mentored me. You've got to reciprocate that as you get to my grand old age. But that's really important, to hand that experience down, because I was taught by somebody else who's a very successful business person at the end of their career, when I was just starting mine in the first few years, learn at somebody else's expense, he said, because experience is priceless. But if you have to spend your whole life trying to get those experiences, you'll miss out on an awful lot of stuff. And if you want to get there quicker, other people can help you, right? And he was absolutely spot on.
Yeah, 100%. And what about with obviously the journey and the path that CloudGuard's on now? Are you 5 years into this? When did CloudGuard start?
This is year 6 now. So we're really cracking on. We're into the international mode of expansion now, which is great and super exciting. Me and Jaff were talking about it. Lots of people have a 3 or 5 year plan. I think we keep resetting at the end of every year, as we've just redone together with the rest of the board. Here's the next 3 or 5 years, etc. So that's what we see. And the beauty of it being our own business and having such great, supporting other investors behind us is the fact that, we are making a difference and we are growing, we are protecting more customers, and we're delivering a great customer experience. Everyone's having fun and enjoying it in the business. We're seeing people evolve, grow, we're hiring more people. That's a great place to be. It's really enjoyable being part of this business and being part of the CloudGuard universe, as we refer to it, in the team of people. And as long as I'm enjoying that and I'm able to contribute, then, long may it be, as the case might be. So, I just see the expansion of that, helping other tech businesses along the way with the experiences that I've had, keeping that perspective in other businesses and helping other businesses grow, in the same vein as CloudGuard is.
Yeah, definitely. And I think it's testament, Matt, to you and your sort of personality. You could you could quite easily just keep yourself wrapped up in your own world of what you're doing and keep your head down and run headstrong into growing CloudGuard at 100% of your time, but you spend a lot of other time with other businesses, helping them grow and using your experience in the industry to not just grow your own business but to help others. Yeah, exactly. And I think that's testament to you, Matt. So should we dive in? I always do a little Microsoft Mentors quickfire round at the end of every podcast. Should we dive into it? It's always a good bit of fun. I'll start off with I'll put a bit of a tripwire in there for you, Matt, to see how Microsoft you are when it comes to personal devices, laptops, etc. Are you Windows or are you Mac?
Windows through and through.
Okay, you'd be surprised how many covert Mac users there are in the Microsoft community.
Being Windows, sorry, Apple.
Yeah. Are you early bird catches the worm, or are you a night owl, or do you burn both ends of the candle?
I'm a both ends person, I'm afraid. I am up at 5 and I don't go to bed till late, and I've always been wired that way. So
yeah, I'm wired that way at the moment, but that's because of kids, not by any choice. Dear me. Podcast or book? What would you prefer to learn from or understand from?
So for years and years, I've always said book, and I'm an avid reader, partly because I'm dyslexic, and it massively helped me overcome that part of my life, which is always part of your life, isn't it? But more and more I enjoy podcasts because it's a very different experience. So I enjoy both, but if you asked me to pick one, I would always come down on book.
Yeah. We may have covered this in the conversation, but as a business leader in technology, what would you say is one key skill that someone needs to have in that role?
I think people will be really surprised when I say empathy, because you need to understand the customer experience as the customer is seeing it. I think too many people get too defensive with technology and don't truly understand how it's being used, in the context it's being used, and how that generates the problem.
Yeah, definitely. In terms of career advice for people, follow the mission or follow the money?
Follow the mission. The money will come.
Yeah, good answer. And final one on a personal note, it's Friday night. We've just got to the end of a hard week. What takeaway are you ordering, Matt? What's your guilty takeaway pleasure?
I'm not allowed takeaways either anymore, but if I had a go-to takeaway over the years, I would say it's fish and chips.
Fish and chips, yeah, good choice. I think that would be one of my top two. Fish and chips or Chinese for me is always the takeaway call up.
Indeed.
Brilliant. Well, Matt, thanks very much for your time, taking us through your journey, what CloudGuard are doing in the world, and all of the businesses that you're involved with. As always, Matt and his businesses will be tagged in the post across all the different platforms. Feel free to reach out to Matt, as he's sort of spoken about. He's always interested to coach and mentor people across the industry, so I'm sure he'll be able to spare time if people want to reach out. And best of luck for the rest of 2026 for you and the team at CloudGuard, mate.
And the same for you, Ollie, and your team. Thank you so much for having me on your Microsoft Mentors podcast.
Cheers. I'll see you in a bit.
All right. Cheers. Bye.
Hopefully you enjoyed this week's episode of Microsoft Mentors, the podcast. Whether you listen to us on LinkedIn Live, on YouTube, on Spotify, or wherever else you listen to your podcast, make sure you follow, like, and subscribe. Both myself, Ollie Ridley, on LinkedIn, our guests, and also the podcast. The more people that we know are listening, the more time and investment we can make into the podcast and bring more conversations with our Microsoft mentors and leaders from across the Microsoft partner ecosystem to our community. In the meantime, stay tuned and keep an eye out for next week's episode.